Someone from U.S. Peace Council.
We dig it up during the interview. We will. Hey, everybody. So we're live on NJR. We're going to play a little music for you now because we love our music here at New Jersey Revolution Radio. We'll ask you to share this out. We're going to get started in just a minute. Special report featuring Bahman Asad from the U.S. Peace Council and any other organizations you're representing today, brother?
Oh, there's quite a number of them, but that would be good enough for now.
That's just good enough for now. So just another minute. You're going to hear me do like the big intro, but I want to give you a minute out there. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Twitter or whatever, share this out, do a watch party, retweet us, please. We need those shares. We're reaching people. We are. But you know what? We always want to reach more. And that means when you share us, you're helping spread the revolution. You're helping spread our cause, and you're helping get out some information that, honestly, today, what we're going to talk about and why we're doing this special little broadcast is, one, we've got some time and we've been getting donations so we can produce more content. And so that's thanks to our donors. And two, because I've been watching the mainstream media, and Bahman and I had a very brief conversation before this, and it's not the same story when you get your information from other sources. And I know Bahman is a good one. So let's get started here. I'm going to restart the music, so it looks like we're actually starting a real show here now that y'all are sharing, and I can see the numbers going up. But one more time, www.njrevolutionradio.com/donate. I'm going to start the show. Here we go. This is how I do it. Hi, everybody. Happy Saturday afternoon. This is Brian. I'm here live in New Jersey Revolution Radio Studios North. We are very happy to bring you this special episode to talk about international stuff going on, things going on around the world, Middle East, South America, and other things taking place. Of course, the major pandemic is not isolated here to the United States, but we are the epicenter of it. We are in the middle of the largest mass casualty event, which may be in the history of our country on U.S. soil since the Civil War, or I can't even think of one that may be even bigger. So, but that has global effects. And our comrade Bahman, you can see on our screen, sent me this link this morning, which is a letter that was written, and I'll pop it up here on my screen because you can see it, but I can't see it. But there it is, right there. So it's a letter. And Bahman, before we get into the content of the letter, because I think I've seen some of these numbers before, these staggering numbers. And in the time of COVID, when we should all be coming together, when I'm seeing community form, when I'm seeing neighbors share food, when I'm seeing charities raise money, people are getting their Trump checks, and if they don't, they're putting aside a little portion and they're giving it. I'm seeing that. I'm also seeing a lot of people in need falling through the cracks, and I'm seeing people scramble to serve for basic needs. And in the midst of all this tragedy, in the midst of all this death and destruction, the United States has made it somewhere on their priority list to accuse the president of Venezuela of being a drug dealer, trying to muscle him out of office, which they've been doing for a while anyway. Continued sanctions in Iran. And I mean, the list goes on. 35 to 40 countries, 1/3 of the countries on this planet, plus other agencies and other groups of people trying to do good work, bad work. We paint them as evil, and we were withholding life-saving services, vaccinations, food, other medical supplies, but we're still shipping arms to the Israelis in their conflict, in their occupation, in their unjust war against the Palestinian people. We're still sending arms to Saudi Arabia. We are still funding overthrows of regimes in South America and supporting Bolsonaro and his idiocy in Brazil. And I hate to steal your thunder, Bahman, but I know you can give us way more details on what's going on here. But this link that you sent me, let's just start there and talk about, where did this letter come from? Why is its message so important?
Well, Brian, this is something that came from our allies in Berlin. Actually, this is not our own campaign. they asked us to distribute that, and we did. But our own letter, which is signed by a lot of prominent personalities and leaders of peace movement, is on our uspeacecouncil.org website, um, which is initiated by people like Noam Chomsky and Cornel West and Vijay Prashad and many others.
Mm-hmm.
We are calling for people to sign on a letter that is addressed to President Trump, the government of the United States, and to the Secretary General of the United Nations, demanding that the sanctions against all the targeted countries be dropped, demanding that the US remove its naval warships from the shores of Venezuela, and demanding that the charge of drug trafficking against President Maduro be dropped, and demand that the United States government heed the call by the Secretary General of United Nations for ceasefire across the world.
Yeah. Which should be, I mean, we've talked a lot about, I hear about reopening the economy and restarting the economy, doing these things to just kind of get back to normal. But my question is why? Why should we go back to normal? Included all these wars. Normal included all this money going into violence rather than healthcare. Normal included, 56% of our tax dollars, 60%, wherever you want to, the sources are a little varied depending on how you want to calculate, but well over half of our tax dollars going to basically killing people. Yes. Why would we want to go back to that? Why would we want to go back? Why wouldn't we want to take this moment in history to do it better? We shut down. We did it. We shut down capitalism to some degree. We shut down communism. We shut down the economies worldwide to some degree. Why would we restart it? The machine that got us here, why would we restart it? Doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't think anybody, those who are calling for going back to normal, I think they realize that normal is not normal.
It's never going to be.
Yeah, and they're talking about the different normal, I hope. And the thing is that it's not even clear whether we can even resume what was going on before, with the crisis that the system is in and the exposure that came as a result of this failure of the whole global capitalist system to respond to a pandemic, which revealed not only weaknesses but also lack of intention, what the priorities are. Because there's a lot of problems that we can discuss, but they are trying to solve the question of COVID-19 through market economy, through corporations, through private sector. And it's not going to work. And if you look at it globally, the countries that have taken other measures than leaving it to the market to solve these problems have been dealing much better with the problem than the US, that has the purest form of market economy and everything depends on that, and government has no role actually, even if it is considered to have some role. Our president is
yeah, well, that's the point there. I mean, that right now, like I said, we're the epicenter. We were clearly not prepared for this. We were not, that we wouldn't be panicking right now in the way that we did if we were all prepared for it. And I think that goes down to a personal level, that I wasn't personally prepared for something like this. I'm learning as I go, just like our government. It feels like. Yeah. So that's by any definition, we were not prepared. But I think, some of the issue lies in admitting that we weren't prepared and even, and fixing that going forward, but also in this kind of big PR scramble, because so much in our world is about how it looks rather than how it is. And what I pointed out to is, like, if I'm looking at Fox News, or I'm looking at a different media source that feeds my need to reinforce American nonsense, or whatever you want to call it, American pride or whatever, I'm thinking that Iran is a mess. In Iran, people are dying, and that they're not, they're really not getting treated, properly in Iran. And there's these other countries that I think there's been some distraction to try and point out. And Iran was very hard hit by any measure of the imagination. But they're all around the globe, it's being hard hit. And our expert here that I've leaned on so much is Lori Endicott Thomas, who wrote the book No More Measles. And she looks at so many facts and figures. And she has even said, and any expert that I trust has said that by any measure of the imagination, numbers can't be accurate because the testing hasn't been there. It's not accurate. We're not testing enough people. We don't have large, like any numbers that they're trying to extrapolate and do things with. It's kind of like an instinct thing. It's kind of like, okay, we think the numbers look like this, so we're going to go with it until we're wrong. And sometimes you do wind up being wrong. Now, that all being said, you grew up in Iran, believe, and served in the military there. So you have friends and family there.
Yes.
What do you know? And let me ask you this. What do you know that the people know, and what kind of information is the average plumber or electrician in Iran getting? And what kind of information is the government putting out? And what do you think kind of like the picture in Iran looks like from your perspective right now?
Well, initially it was really bad for Iran. It was really spreading fast, and a lot of people were dying. But in the past couple of weeks, or probably more, Iran has managed to contain this thing, at least slow down the rate of growth of infections, and also reduce the number of deaths. Iran originally had about 7 to 8% rate of deaths. Now it's down to 6%, 6.2%. And the number of increase in the rate of increase in the infections has dropped and has been declining.
Right.
They say that in 10 provinces they have managed to control the situation. But again, the question is, things are still bad.
Yeah.
We're talking about 78,000 people infected in Iran, and about 4,800 people dead. So in general, the conditions are not that good. And given the fact that Iran is also under the brutal US sanctions, they ended up asking now for 30 years, Iran has avoided going to IMF, but now is forced to apply for loans from IMF of $5 billion or something.
I believe Venezuela had to do the same thing, and they were turned down.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So, yeah, the conditions are not that good, but they have been managing it in a very effective way in the past few weeks. So, if you look at the curves, that I don't know if you have that access to that global site on COVID-19, which gives the latest data up to dates. Iran's curves are going downward right now.
That's good to hear. I mean, anywhere you hear, it's good to hear that numbers are coming down. I think I have some of the world CDC map, I think is what you're looking at here.
No, let me give you the link and URL.
Yeah, if we want to take a look at that, I'm looking at some data, and we look at this stuff with a cynical eye. We'll take this just a moment to mention something while you pull that up. That this coming Friday at 5 p.m. we're going to have a great live stream presentation with Heather Warbert and Jeremy Einbinder. The show is called State of the Revolution, and for those of us that have known Jeremy for a long time, the dude's a brilliant mind. His study into communism and communist theory is solid. His politics are probably the most solid of anybody I've ever had discussion with about politics. And when Heather sits down with him, they've usually have discussion around, traditional communist thought, but they also really do a great job of applying it to kind of what we see in our everyday lives. So great study about Marxism on New Jersey Revolution Radio. Check it out. It's going to be this Friday at 5 p.m. Back to Bahman Asad. Bahman, you were looking up some numbers and you said you might have a link.
It's not the numbers, it's the website that everybody can look at. It's covid19.info. COVID-19 does not have a hyphen. It's just COVID-19. .info. It's a global site that shows the latest numbers. You can focus on US, and put your cursor on any country. It gives you the numbers for that country at any moment.
COVID19.info?
Yeah.
No, it's not coming up.
Hold on. It should.
Yeah, it didn't come up. So this site is not currently available. Uh-oh.
I'm
Putin.
sorry. COVID-19info.live.
What .live?
COVID-19 info is as at the URL level, COVID-19info.live. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. So where do you know where the so this looks pretty similar to some of the stuff I've seen out
Go
there
on the map and
Yeah.
cursor on that.
Just for purposes out there, I haven't looked into the sources on these numbers. I trust you, Bahman here, but I do want to let everybody know out there that I'm not. So you can take a look at these numbers on this website, and I will share it with you for just a minute here. Let me just throw that out. So we're going to share this. So here's what he's talking about here, and we can look and we can see the U.S. numbers. Let's see if that's pretty, confirmed infected. That's 37. We're coming up on 40,000 deaths, and these are very close to the numbers that I'm hearing reported elsewhere. So,
I'll click on that link next to the global with eyeglasses, with the magnifying glass. You can choose the continent, the country. You can go to the Americas and then select from the list of the Americas, the US, and you can get numbers for every state. Now go down to Americas on the map, on the drop down, and then America. Yeah. And then click on it again and go to the down arrow next to the on that same
where am I going now?
Magnifying glass next to the Americas. Okay. And click on the down arrow and choose US. And now you have all the states.
And you can clearly see we're in the worst hit. I mean, there's just the black and red stripes right there, 50,000 plus in these two states. And, it's most of it. And I will tell you, even if you look, I don't know, can you click on the state and even get closer? Can you get it down to a state level? I don't know how it breaks down. Yeah. But,
that row up there that above the map shows the state numbers.
Yeah, I'm wondering. So even you can break it down if you look at like New Jersey's website. They break it down by township even.
Okay.
There's some better. So but this is good for the intern. Honestly, like the conversation that you and I are having here. This can inform people as to the international, the global perspective, that we're bringing. So I appreciate it. Now, as far as now we talked a little bit about the conditions. I brought up in the beginning though the sanctions. These sanctions are everywhere. And I want people I'm trying to put this in perspective, that a third of the world is out there lacking resources because we just want to dick around with their politics. And that's how I see it. Bahman, can you be more graceful in putting that out there for us? Because, I just curse and yell at this point. I'm so aggravated with the insistence on this horrific foreign policy. But can you give us an idea of really, there is a push though now to end the sanctions. Yeah. Where's that coming from? How much support does it have? And are we going to have an impact on any of them in the near future where we can save lives with this kind of activity?
Well, there's a lot of difficulties involved. Of course, a lot of activities going on calling for end of sanctions. Even G20 countries called for lifting the sanction or easing them up. But the problem is the United States, because there are approaches within the United Nations to lift at least the UN imposed sanctions on countries, and it seems there is some favorable tendency there. But again, if the US does not agree with that, because they are controlling the whole financial and banking network for transactions globally, and if they don't agree with it and they don't unfreeze the assets or they don't allow transactions with sanctioned countries, nothing will happen, even though United Nations wants to do it. So they have full control, and it's a question of how we can really push the US to step back on this. And that requires a popular mass action. That's the only hope. Because, no country can challenge that individually, definitely, even the bigger ones.
Yeah.
So it's a global issue that has to be addressed by the whole people. And that's what we've been trying to do. Sanctions Kill campaign in the US is doing it. Our letter, we are close to 7,000 signatures from around the globe. And we are shooting for 10,000 signatures. And each signature goes directly to President of the United States office and to the office of the Secretary General of the UN. We are holding some webinars in conjunction with various organizations, including Popular Resistance, Sanctions Kill, UNAC, and others, International Action Center, and many other organizations. On this coming Thursday at 5 p.m., we have a webinar. It's on our Facebook page. It's on other organizations' Facebook page and websites, including Popular Resistance. We are having a kind of in-depth discussion of the resistance in Venezuela. Our guest speaker, main keynote speaker, is Carlos Ron, Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of Venezuela.
Oh, wow.
We are also organizing at this time another webinar for May 9th, together again with a whole list of organizations that are members of Sanctions Kill, with 6-7 different representatives of different governments of sanctioned countries, which include Cuba, Venezuela, Syria, Iran, Nicaragua, Zimbabwe, and representatives from Palestine. That we are hoping that their government's representatives, or at least the UN ambassadors of those countries, will participate to discuss what they are facing, how they are battling this sanctions during COVID crisis. But given the fact that people are now stuck at home, there cannot be any mass protests on the streets or any actions like that. It seems that we are limited to some of these things to at least educate and mobilize.
I'm getting a little echo there. Yeah. Is that on your end? Oh, I got a little echo now. That's gone. There we go. Oh, now it's back. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, I'm going to try to stump you here because usually I can anticipate answers a little bit, but I guess I've been asking myself this question with a lot of things in the midst of a global pandemic and all the hard work being done and all the hard work that has been laid out, before you. I mean, there's this peace movement is not new, and peace movement in this country has been going on for hundreds of years. What tactics are working as a grassroots activist, right? As a guy, I'm doing these mutual aid programs, and I would say my answer would be share food right now. Get supplies to people, make sure that your fellow man is taken care of, and that's how you create a better new world. But there's larger things at play here. Let's not pretend that delivering a bag of groceries to your neighbor, creates a revolution. It doesn't. What do you hear that's being done that's having real effect for the activist community out there, for the people at home that are either essential workers or limited in what they can do because of the health crisis?
Well, Brian, this is something we have been advocating for a long time. The main thing is that our movement is too fractured and siloed into different causes and different issues. And even within one issue, different organizations are acting separately from each other. There's no national coordination anywhere. There's no structure for mobilizing the forces, all of our potential. So we think, at least in the US Peace Council and our allies, believe that we have to begin very serious work of coalition building, going beyond our own organizations. Put, I would say, organizational chauvinism aside and working together on agreed upon platforms. We do not need to argue about anything that we disagree on. That can be worked out in the process. But we should start working together on what we agree on. And there's much more that we agree on than what we disagree on.
I don't agree with that.
Okay.
What? No, no, I'm joking there. To make
no, I know.
How the left acts. That is how the left acts. I think you bring up a point. Let me ask you, what do we agree on? What do you see? And of course, you can't speak for everybody, but what do you see? I mean, we agree on peace. I will give, I think that most of the left, I don't think that liberals really get peace. I'll be honest with you. I think honestly, peace is an abstract notion to them that they don't believe in. I think that those of us that consider ourselves real peace activists understand that peace is possible. You need to shift that attitude around a little bit. But I do see that as something that at least we can communicate peace, and that's why it's a good issue. That regardless of politics, you should be able to talk on a personal level with another human being about being at peace and not being at war. I feel it's a really good issue to talk to people that you may not agree with on other things about. But beyond peace, like how can we? What is your recommendation? What should I be out there as an organizer?
Well, Brian, there's some context to this thing, and that we're operating in a given context. When you mentioned liberals, I know a lot of good liberals.
Sure, wonderful-hearted people.
But the problem is, many of them are closely tied to the Democratic Party, and that is putting a brake on what they will do or can do. For example, we know this crisis of the U.S. imperialism at this stage, all the foreign policies are based on the requirements of the U.S. big capital. It's a systemic problem. But this is the least that a Democrat would want to address. They blame it on Trump, on this president, that president, campaign for election of a Democrat into the office, but when we get the Democrat into the office, the same thing happens. So we're dealing with a systemic issue that requires an independent struggle, not as a part of established two-party system. Look at what happens to Sanders, right?
Yeah,
He had a lot of
course, Joe Biden 2 seconds after he dropped out of the race.
He had
disgraceful
good points.
He did.
What stopped him even within this campaign? It was Democratic Party itself, because the system had no stomach for what he was saying, even at that minimal level.
And I don't want to hear from the Democratic Party or the Democrats how any of us on the left, communists, revolutionaries, Greens, you name us, the left, hurt Bernie Sanders in any way, shape, or we didn't. I did not. You could go back over the tapes or even listen or look at the Facebook feeds of people that are normally very critical of we backed off completely. I didn't hurt. I actually put up some stuff that's kind of supported Bernie, even though I didn't, I not declare it. I'm a Howie Hawkins guy. I'm going to be supporting the Greens. But you know what? We didn't beat up Bernie. We didn't go after him. And it was done because, quite frankly, most of us will agree that if he was the nominee, it would have been a decent step forward.
Yeah, and even
good. But the Democratic Party was having none of it.
A good portion of the left even supported him.
The Democratic Party was having none of it. It wasn't the left. It was the Democratic Party that stopped Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, as soon as he became a viable nominee, was ahead of everybody else, that scared the establishment.
They went to work. It's not hard.
Moved out of the campaign, and
it is not hard to scheme up a couple of candidates to garner votes off of one, throw them into the race later on down the road. It's not hard. This is not difficult math. It's just math and how many candidates do I put in to draw votes. That's what they do. That's not democracy. It's rigged. It's completely rigged from the beginning. What do we do, man? So we're not going to elect Bernie. I'm delivering food. We're educating people. There's media out there. There is. So I'm not coming at this without answers, but I think we are looking for, we all have to admit that we're looking for answers. We're all doing what we can do. I can see that, you know, you're certainly out there educating, and thanks for coming on the show today and letting people know this, that it's important, but it's also very much a work in progress. I mean, I don't think any of us should be so, you know, full of ego or bravado right now that we should claim that we have the answers. I don't think any of us do. And that includes from the world leaders on down to the parent in a single parent household that's just trying to struggle. We're all a little lost right now. The solution is clear to me, in my mind. The solution's not in capitalism. The solution's not in Donald Trump. The solution's not even in elections, although I think it helps to have leaders in place that know what it is the hell we're doing. But, you know, here at New Jersey Revolution Radio, we're reporting on city council people that are worried about 5G conspiracies. I mean, we can't have that kind of leadership at this time in our history. And I think we should be demanding better of our leaders on every level. We should also be educating ourselves and doing what we can in our towns. I want to thank you for all of them links. Bahman, I urge you all to put up comments, ask questions, have a critical eye, use some common sense, be safe. But you know, I think we're all in agreement here on the left, at least, and at New Jersey Revolution Radio, that this world's never going to go back to normal. So let's make it better. Let's make it better. All right. That's my message to everybody. Bahman, before we go, any last words for our audience here?
Well, it's time to act. It's time to act. We cannot wait for things to improve. If we do not act, there's two possibilities here. Either people try to get out of this situation, critical situation, moving forward, or the system pushes it backward.
Yeah, exactly. As our comrade here,
we are not going to go back to that old status quo.
No,
the system cannot afford it anymore. There's too much dissatisfaction. There's too much consciousness raised right now about the failures that they cannot. There's going to be more repression to opposition right now if we don't do that. Yeah. And you can see they're setting the stage for all kinds of mechanisms of public control, mass control.
Yeah. But popular resistance works. Rising up works. Making us think works. Justin on the stream mentions that the Brazilian Ministry of Health actually gave a PSA that they need to ignore Bolsonaro, the president of the country. So, and that stems from people rising up and saying, no, if you have the truth, you need to speak out. And certainly one of the great things you can say in Brazil is to ignore Bolsonaro, because he's as much of a clown. I can't tell you which was more of a clown, him or Trump, both clowns. But thanks a lot. Again, Bahman, U.S. Peace Council. Check him out. Check out all these links. He's got a ton of writings. I know he wants to share a bunch of stuff. So check him out very soon. I'll be back on Wednesday. I might be back with another special report. There's a lot of stuff going on. Like I said, contributions are working. I'm able to get more production done. I'm able to get more graphics produced. I've got more time and labor available to me thanks to you. But that doesn't mean, you know, we can't stop asking for more money because we ain't there yet. Trump checks are rolling in, and if you can give a few dollars, we know you may need it for vital supplies. Make sure you're taking care of you and yours. But if you've got a little budget for a donation, please send it to us. www.njrevolutionradio.com/donate. We accept PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, and some other stuff too. If you can't figure out how to donate, you can always email us. We will make a way for you. All right. Thanks, comrades. Until I see you again, this is Brian Powers, and I want to remind everybody that the police can quit their jobs. Peace, everybody.